El Presidio Real de Santa Barbara, also known as the Royal Presidio of Santa Barbara, is a former military installation in Santa Barbara, California, USA. The Presidio was built by Spain in 1782, with the mission of defending the 2nd Military District in California. In modern times, the Presidio serves as a significant tourist attraction, museum and an active archaeological site as part of El Presidio de Santa Barbara State Historic Park. The park contains an original adobe structure called El Cuartel, which is the second oldest surviving building in California. Only the chapel at Mission San Juan Capistrano, known as Father Serra's Church, is older. The Presidio of Santa Barbara has the distinction of being the last military outpost built by Spain in the New World. The Presidio became a California historical landmark in 1958 and was listed on the U.S. National Register of Historic Places in 1973. Contemporary setting. The current El Presidio de Santa Barbara State Historic Park site sits between Anacapa and Garden Street on East Canon Perdido Street in downtown Santa Barbara. The main portion of the site is across the street from the Santa Barbara City Post Office, and is about 2 blocks from City Hall, De La Guerra Plaza and 2 other museums, the Santa Barbara Historical Museum and the Casa de La Guerra. Only 2 portions of the original Presidio quadrangle survive to this day. The Carnado adobe, named for José María Carnado, the Soldado de Guerra to whom it was deeded in lieu of back pay when the Presidio fell to inactivity, and the remnants of a 2-room soldiers' quarters, called El Cuartel. The Carnado adobe is currently the visitors center for the state park, and El Cuartel is largely unmodified. The site's operator, the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation, reconstructed the rest of the site, with the most recent construction, 2 rooms in the northwest corner of the site, finished in May 2006. The reconstruction is ongoing, with the construction of 2 more rooms in the northwest corner beginning in December 2007. History. The site of the Presidio was chosen by Felipe de Neve, the 4th governor of Las Californias. Perceiving that the coast of Santa Barbara was vulnerable to attack, he located a spot near a harbor which was sheltered from severe storms. In addition, there was an ample supply of both building materials and water nearby. Construction began on April 21, 1782, and Padre Junipero Serra blessed the site. By the next year, a temporary facility had been completed, and a wheat field planted by the local Chumash Indians of Chief Yananalat. The early Presidio consisted of mud and brush walls around a quadrangle 330 feet on a side. The post had 61 officers and men in 1783. The first comandante, José Francisco Ortega, planned the fortifications and irrigation works. He obtained livestock for the Presidio from Mission San Buenaventura, established orchards, and began large-scale farming. In 1784, Felipe de Goycochea took over as comandante, supervising construction of the fortifications and living quarters from the soldiers and the families. 2 years later, construction of the nearby Mission Santa Barbara began in 1786. The pueblo, a town of Santa Barbara, developed around the Presidio, which offered protection for the residents. The chapel in the Presidio was the primary place of worship for the residents of early Santa Barbara, until its destruction by the 1857 Fort Tejon earthquake. The mission, located 1.5 miles inland, was mainly intended for use by the native Chumash neophytes after the conversion to Catholicism. The Presidio was built as standard plans for a Spanish colonial military headquarters, using locally available materials. So the buildings forming the outer square were constructed with thick, solid adobe outer walls. The main gate opened into an open parade ground plaza in the center of the square. The chapel stood at the center of the back of the square, facing the gate across the plaza. While it was never attacked by a strong military force during its 60 years of operation, the Presidio was subject to the assaults of nature. Several devastating earthquakes in the early 19th century destroyed much of the structure. In 1855, the Presidio Chapel grew into the Apostolic College of Our Lady of Sorrows, which soon became Our Lady of Sorrows Church at the corner of Figueroa and State Streets, and then at the corner of Anacapa and Sola Streets in 1929. However, both still stand separately as vibrant churches of a richly Catholic history. Mexican-American War. At the time of the Mexican-American War in Alta California, very little of the fortress remained in usable condition, and on December 27, 1846, John C. Fremont ascended San Marcos Pass during rainy weather and came up on the Presidio and the town from behind. The Presidio surrendered without a fight, as the garrison was far south in the Pueblo de Los Angeles. Fremont had heard that the Mexican army was lying in ambush for him at Gaviota Pass, the only other sensible route over the mountains at the time, and had crossed the difficult muddy track on San Marcos Pass to outflank them, but this move turned out not to have been necessary. Mexican General André Pico later surrendered his force to Fremont, recognizing that the war was lost. Preservation. In 1963, the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation was founded, with the primary mission of restoring the Presidio. In 1966, the land on which the Presidio is located became a state historic park. On December 27, 2006, the SBTHP renewed their ongoing agreement with the California State Parks Department to manage the Presidio. Work on the restoration is currently taking place. On November 26, 1973, the Presidio of Santa Barbara was added to the U.S. National Register of Historic Places. Juan Bautista de Anza National Historic Trail. The Presidio of Santa Barbara is one of the designated tour sites of the Juan Bautista de Anza National Historic Trail, a National Park Service unit in the United States National Historic Trail and National Millennium Trail programs.